Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 52 units of real estate. So I want to talk about how I grew up with very low self-esteem as a kid and how over time I've, kind of conquered that and, became more confident, had higher self-esteem. So, growing up in an Asian American household, it's not very common for your parents to compliment you or say you're doing a good job, right? Like they just kind of, you do it and then, you can get A's, whatever, they're non-reactive. You could do all these achievements, all these accomplishments, and, the reaction's very like neutral, not really positive, just more neutral. But if you didn't do well in school, right? Like if I got like, C's, you'd be almost like punished, right? So that's the typical household. Both my parents immigrated here from Vietnam, and they work full-time jobs. So the typical immigrant who just moved here, they're just working full-time, and they weren't around their parents a lot either, so they don't really know how to raise you besides like giving you the necessities, right? Like a roof over your head, food on the table, clothing. If we wanted something, we can get it. Not super lavish. Just grew up middle class. So I just remember growing up as a kid, I just felt very like, I thought I was always like stupider than everyone else for some reason. And it's because, I had this growth mindset very early on, like, oh, I thought I could always do better. And I just assumed that like everyone was smarter than me, so that I had to work 3 times as hard as everyone else to get the same result. So I always kind of had that mentality for some reason. In like elementary school, where like, oh, like, hey, my classmates, they're doing great in school. They don't have to study much. I'm like, well, if they have to study 1 hour, I have to study 3 hours, right? And despite studying 3 hours, I would probably do like worse in school, or like it just took me a lot longer to pick up things compared to like my friends. Like I wasn't like very not physically gifted, right? I grew up, I'm Vietnamese, right? Like we're small stature, and I wasn't good at sports, for example. And then I didn't really feel that smart either. And then, I just felt very like average. I remember I was like very shy. And I remember when I was walking as a kid, I never knew why, but I'd always look down at the ground when I'm walking and not looking up. And it's because I think I just lacked self esteem, to be honest, looking back and reflecting on it. And I just remember I thought I was like nothing really special about me, just kind of like average, blended in, nothing special. But I did like to like learn, and I was willing to put in like whatever work was needed. I remember like we had like in elementary school like a kind of like a book report like poster, and for every book you read and book report you've done, like you'd get like a star next to your name. And I just remember like I made an effort to like get as many stars as possible because I wanted to like improve myself. Or I remember like back in elementary school, for those millennials, we had a program called like Run for Fun, I think it was called. And like you would run and you'd get tickets for every lap you've ran. And I remember after school I used to go like run around um, to get extra tickets, or like during break I'd run around to get extra tickets. So I was just like always trying to like improve myself. And um, it was quite interesting because like I said, I thought I was like completely average. But fast forward today, I could see how my work ethic compound over time. And then once you've accomplished a lot and done a lot, you now have a track record of what you've done, what you've accomplished, and that lays a foundation for you today. Where I don't have low self-esteem. I'm more confident in my abilities, and I'm more confident that if I spend enough time, energy, doing something, I can be successful at it over time, right? So also having that patience. But when I grew up as a kid, like I said, I just knew I had to put in more work than other people. And in a weird way, I was always like very efficient looking back. Like I was always like, oh, like I want to do my homework as fast as possible so that I can play video games, right? Like I remember I don't want to finish like my homework as soon as possible because I want to play video games, watch TV. I remember I'd watch like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. And I remember I'd sit on the bus ride home. Yes, I used to take the bus back home in elementary school with my grandparents would pick me up and take me back. But I remember on the bus ride, I would be doing my homework. And so when I get home, I can like, study or watch Dragon Ball Z, watch Pokemon, watch whatever, was on Cartoon Network at the time. And I remember like just trying to get things done as fast as possible so that I could like just do what I want to do. So I kind of got the boring stuff out of the way, or stuff I didn't want to do out of the way first, so I could do the stuff I want to do later. So it's kind of like this weird reward, right? Where get the homework over with now, so I can watch TV or play video games later, right? And obviously today it translates very well, where I take care of the hard, boring work first, and then I have free time to do what I want, and that's how I've worked full time. I own 52 units of real estate. I'm like creating content now. Like that's how I'm like so efficient. And then I try to gym because like I just really, once I remember something, I do something immediately, right? So that's how it translated till today. But back then I didn't really think much. I just thought like, because I knew I had to work 3 times harder than most people. I was like, well, I got to start earlier then, right? If they start homework at like 6 p.m., I got to start at 3 p.m. because I need to work 3 times as hard. So I remember like just being very shy, very low self esteem. Like I always thought my opinion was like stupid. So like I remember in class, like kids, the kid that raises their hand all the time. That was never me. I was afraid to be picked. I didn't want to talk. I was very self conscious. I felt like I was stupid. I'll say something stupid, and yeah, I just remember like one day when my mom forgot to pick me up. I think one day I was too afraid to ask the teacher to like um, get the phone to call my mom. Like back then, we didn't have like cell phones, right? I need to ask the teacher, hey, can I call my mom? I think she forgot me or is maybe running late. So yeah, I just remember doing that, and I was like too shy and like very like low self esteem. And I remember this kind of like trickled into like middle school, where once again, like I was doing like arts and crafts. I was terrible at arts. I still am, to be honest. um I was like decent at school, I think, at that point, like where I was like, okay, like I could tell that I was a little better in school. I remember in elementary school we had something called a gate program, and like I remember I just wanted to qualify for it but I never did. And admission to the gate program was based on like I think how you scored on like these standardized tests that we had. And I remember when they would announce who the new gate students were, I'd be like, oh, I hope it's me. And then it wasn't me. And I was like, well, that makes sense, because I'm not the smartest. So I got to work harder. Right. And then by the time I was in middle school, I remember I think it started to compound for me. And now at this point, I remember I was like in classes where all the gate kids were. And I was like, oh, I'm finally at that level. And, once again, you get humbled. Like you're with the best of the best. And you take the class. I'm like, oh my god! I remember I skipped a grade in math, but then I got like a C in like algebra because I skipped pre-algebra straight into algebra. And I remember like all my friends would like get A's. And I'm like, oh man! Like once again, like I just felt very like stupid and very inadequate, low self esteem. I'm like, well, once again, I got to work hard. So I basically went to high school and kind of same thing. Like I would take all these like AP classes, and I would get like B's and A's on them, but like all my friends would get like straight A's, right? So like once again, I was like, felt very inadequate, and I was just like, okay, well, once again, got to put in the effort and try harder, right? And I remember I was in varsity tennis in high school, and once again, it was really weird. Like when I just would play casually with people, like I was very good, but then when I would play seriously with people, like my self esteem would like cripple me. Like I had no confidence whatsoever. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna lose, and like it was just kind of like this weird weak mindset. Like looking back, right? Just because I had very low self esteem, and I'm just like, I didn't have that competitive drive or like, oh, that confidence of like, oh, I can get better and I can beat you, right? That's the type of mentality that you need to have if you want to be successful in sports, right? So I feel like I lacked that like competitive edge, but if it was for fun, yeah, I was good. Like, but then I remember like during tryouts, like I thought it was fun. So like I was like singles four, I think. And then, but as the season goes on, like for some reason, like you get nervous, you lose confidence. And like I was like demoted down to a lower ranking. Um, and I just remember like once again, I still worked hard. And then I ended up graduating top 5% in my high school. We had 700 students, but like all my friends were like the top 1%. Right. So like, it's also kind of like the community aspect now. Like, well, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. So like my 5 closest friends were like the top 1%. So the fact that I was like maybe 2 or 3%, I still felt like inadequate. It's just kind of like a bunch of millionaires hanging out with billionaires. Like you'll feel poor, right? Versus if you're like a millionaire hanging out with people who are like in credit card debt or living paycheck to paycheck, right? Like you'll feel very rich. So it's like all relative, right? And I've always kind of surrounded myself with the top people because it kind of pushed me, but in a weird way, it made me feel very inadequate. But in another way, it motivated me to like push myself, right? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I would say. But I never let it cripple me from giving up. I just wouldn't be like, oh, I'm not as smart as them. I give up. I'm just gonna not try. I was the reverse where I'm like, oh, like these people are really smart, so I'm gonna continue trying, right? And then say this is where the compounding happens over and over again, right? And I remember like I went to like UOP, did the 5 year pre-farm program, and out of 50 people enrolled in the program, and I think only 11 made it in 5 years, right? So it's 2 years undergrad, 3 years of farm school, and a lot of the people I started off with, I thought they're all smarter than me. I'm like, geez, like once again, like I'm probably the bottom of the barrel, and I knew that I had to like study hard and put in the work. But as each year went by in undergrad, I remember people would drop out of that pre-pharmacy program because they couldn't make grades, or they didn't want to do pharmacy, or maybe they failed a class. So like once again, like I graduated, I was like, oh wow, like only 11 out of 50 made it, and I didn't think I'd be one of the 11, right? Like being honest, but I was able to put in the work, and I think at this point, I remember at 20, and that was when I started pharmacy school. Like I just still overall had very like low self-esteem. Like I remember like I would think like, oh, like why did of course girls wouldn't like me, type of thing. I had no confidence, no self-esteem. I'm not good enough. Even though like when like looking back like in high school, like yeah, these girls show sign that they like me, but I always just self-sabotage myself by thinking, oh, like they're just thinking of me as a friend. Of course they're not gonna like me, right? Because I had very low self-esteem. So I remember when I was 20, I started like working out because my roommate I was staying with, like he worked out like almost every day. And I remember like seeing him like over those 2 years, like just get more muscular. And he was a very confident guy, right? He was a Mexican dude, was my roommate for all my college years. His name was Jorge. And like he was just super confident, got a bunch of girls, very smooth talker, very just confident in his ability. So I just thought, well, shoot, like he works out every day, like, and he's confident. Maybe if I start to work out every day, I would get more confident. And I remember the first day I was at the gym, like I grew up super weak, man. I mean, super weak, right? Like I remember trying to just bench the barbell at the gym, which is only 45 pounds, and my arms would be like shaking, right? And then I remember like you'd see like the athlete girls, and they'd pop on like 25s on each side, benching 95 pounds. And I was like, oh shit, I feel so weak, right? And it's a little embarrassing, right? Because like I wasn't that strong. And I just remember I was like, all right, well, I remember it was that summertime, the summer before I entered pharmacy school. Like I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna work out 3 to 4 days a week and see how I progress. And I'm gonna take like I think creatine was new at the time, and like protein. And I remember like I worked out, and like I just felt like I guess it was less intimidating at like the home gym because like it's just older people there, not people my age. So I was like, and I remember I'd work out, and I wake up the next day, I'm like, oh my god, I'm like so damn sore, right? Because I didn't have muscle, I didn't have any of that, and I'm like weak naturally, right? And I remember like drinking protein shakes. I'm like, oh, I'm so full. And I remember taking creatine, made my stomach upset. I threw up the creatine. So I was just like being consistent. And then like I noticed that like I started to gain more muscle over time. I started to like increase my bench press, right? Like I went from like benching just a bar 45 pounds to like at one point at my max I was benching like 225, right? And keep in mind I weigh about 130 is my weight. Like I got really into powerlifting, right? Like I went from 45 pounds all the way to like I think 225 is my max, one rep max. My deadlift, I could deadlift 365 pounds, and squat was about 225. And I came from like absolutely nothing because I was like very weak, right? Still, I consider myself pretty weak. Um, I just remember like, you know what? If I slowly work myself, slowly improve myself, you slowly get there, right? I remember when I first benched like the bar plus the 45 on each side, that was a huge hurdle for me. And I was just like, wow, like, and then I remember started getting more muscle, then I started getting more confidence, right? And then once I got more confidence, like it translated to improved every aspect of my life. Like I was, better at getting girls or talking to girls. I was more confident. I was better at like pharmacy school. I was better at like everything else because I had a track record of success. Like I knew I put in so much work from like elementary school, middle school, high school, undergraduate, pharmacy school, and I've proven to myself time and time again that I could do it if I put in the effort. I put in the time, I put in the energy, and I do it every day, and I'm disciplined, right? So I've done that with school. I did this with like working out, and your track record starts to build. So like you get more and more confident over time, and your self esteem starts to go up, right? So like I remember, so now I'm like, all right, I finished pharmacy school. I'm a pharmacist now. I'm a hospital pharmacist now. And every hurdle, I'm a pharmacy director now. Every hurdle, like I just would know. I put in the time, put in the effort, put in the energy. I'll conquer it, right? Pharmacy director. And after being pharmacy director, I went to single family homes. Then I went to second single family home, third single family home, out of state single family home, multifamily. Right now, I'm trying to do business, right? So like everything that I start now, because I have such a strong track record of my career, my journey, it makes it easier, right? And like I paid off $250,000 student debt in 4 years, right? That's on my track record. I bought 80 units in 8 months. I own 52 units today. So like this is how things start to compound, right? And then people used to like when you meet friends like from elementary school and they're like they just remember you from when you're like kind of like if you saw me in elementary school, I was just this average kid. No one thought anything special of me. I didn't think anything special of me, to be honest. And then fast forward today, after like what 20, 25 years, like I never thought that I would own 52 units of real estate, have $6 million net worth, and let it still compound, right? And relatively speaking, it's still depending who I surround myself with, like there's a lot of people younger than me making a lot more money than me, right? But if you look at the people you grew up with, like you see how much you grew, so they're really shocked to see like how much you've grown and successful you are. It's because they don't see your small daily consistent action and how you improve yourself slowly over time, right? That they don't see that work, they don't see the effort with that. So but you do, right? You do, as somebody who's putting in all that work. So it's really crazy, like reflecting back and how I went from someone with very low self-esteem to like someone who's like more confident. Like don't get me wrong, like I'm not um, overly confident. I'm not like hard on myself. For me, I'm just like, you know what? It just takes time. It takes improvement, and I'll improve over time. Like that's all it is, right? Small, steady improvement every single day for the rest of your life, right? And you'll be surprised what you can obtain, right? How you will change in 10 years. You may not see it, but it takes time over time, right? Like he said, I never thought I'd be to the point where like I was like powerlifting a lot heavier, like 3 times my body weight almost, right? And like it's crazy. Like even to this day, like I'm still shocked that I can like dumbbell press like 60 pounds. I used to do 85 pounds, but today maybe about 60 for about 5 reps. And I'm just like, wow, like, but it gives me confidence knowing that I used to be able to do 85, not today, but I used to be able to do 85. So maybe 60 is manageable, right? And maybe one day I can get back to 85 if I slowly and consistently work out again, right? And get back on a consistent routine. So it's just really having a track record and having proof and having receipts of your success. And you have that to keep you firm, keep you steady, and give you the right mindset moving forward. So like for me, when I had my setbacks on my mobile home park, I knew that I could bounce back up, right? So I'm like, you know what? I learned from this. I bounced back up. I'm going to continue to buy multifamily. I did some shiny object syndrome with an Amazon drop shipping store, lost money on that. Now I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to waste money on stupid shiny object, get rich quick schemes, right? I invested in a pharmacy as an angel investor and lost all my money immediately. So I'm like, now I got a lesson like, wow, like, you're going to go through a lot of failed partnerships. You're going to lose a lot of money. You can go through some stress, right? But now I know I can get back up and go. So the whole point of this is like, I could have let my low self-esteem hold me back and just say, why even try? I'm worthless anyways. Like, why try? Why try? Right? I suck anyways. But for me, I always kept on going and I kept on being persistent and I kept on trying to prove myself, right? So this is like Kaizen, which is like slow, steady improvement over time. And I never gave up. So you only lose when you give up, right? It's that simple. You only lose when you give up. If you never give up, then you never can lose, right? So like that's how I've done every aspect of my life. Like social media, I'm not going to give up. So eventually I'll win, right? It might take me longer to win, but eventually I'll win. Real estate, I don't want to give on real estate. Just keep on doing it. Eventually you'll win, right? So that's just kind of the mindset you need to have is to keep on going forward and to bounce back and to, constantly improve yourself. So, just kind of want to share my journey and share that, I had very low self-esteem growing up. And I imagine I probably had lower self-esteem than you did, right? So if I can achieve this with still slow and steady improvement, then I'm sure you can achieve something as well, right? Because like I said, I grew super low self-esteem, right? But fortunately for me, I just had the mindset to like slowly and steadily improve. So, please take away some nuggets from this video. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you got any value from this video. If you want to buy a multifamily real estate with some guidance and mentorship, check out the link down below. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you next one. Thank you so much.